Hi, everyone. This is Scott Nybakken for Dynamite Entertainment. Today, we're talking to Greg Weisman, the creator of Disney's Gargoyles, and artist Drew Moss about their new Dynamite miniseries, Gargoyles Dark Ages, which launches in July. Greg and Drew, thanks for joining us.
Hi.
Hi, everyone.
Greg, for the viewers who may not know that much about the backstory of the Gargoyles, could you give us just a very quick rundown of the history of the animated series, which, by the way, is available for viewing on Disney Plus?
So Gargoyles premiered in the fall of 1994. We started off as a weekly show, and we did 13 episodes across a 10-month sliding schedule. And then the show did very, very well in its first season, and they upped the ante, and so they asked us to do 52 episodes in a 10-month sliding schedule for season 2, which was somewhat brutal to produce.
I would say, oh, that seemed like I noticed that, and I was like, that seemed very unusual to go from 13 to 52.
Yeah, they wanted us to be on daily as opposed to weekly, and I'm very proud of those 65 episodes total. The first 2 seasons, I think, turned out really great. I'm fond of all the episodes, and some of them I think are just terrific. I think the show was, full of action, funny, romantic, subversive, even for the day. And we had just an amazing time making it. And even then, I knew this might just be a once in a lifetime kind of production for me. And in fact, it kind of was. And then Disney bought ABC. They did a third season called The Goliath Chronicles, but most of the lead writers had left. I was gone. Frank Parr, my producing partner on the show, was gone. It just wasn't the same show. So we don't consider that third season canon. There were a lot of talented people who worked on it, but they just didn't have the time to sort of really acclimate to the show, and it just feels like a different animal. And Marvel also did a set of comics back then, which also just aren't quite on canon with the show. So after those Marvel comics and those 3 seasons, the show went off the air briefly and then came back in reruns, first on USA and then on Toon Disney and then on Disney XD. Show played nonstop for years and years and years. And then around 2006, I partnered with SLG Publishing, and we did 12 issues of Gargoyles and 6 issues of a spin-off series, Gargoyles Bad Guys. And that was a lot of fun, but ultimately SLG lost the license. And we were done again for a while. And then last year, Nate Cosby, our editor, approached me and said, "Hey, how would you feel about doing some more Gargoyles?" And I was like, "Where do I sign?" And that's kind of the short version of the history of the thing.
Excellent. Drew, how much experience did you have with Gargoyles before you started on the project, if any?
I did. I used to watch the show. It was my first year of college, actually, when it came out. And I was not aware of the show, and a friend of mine was just so enamored with it. And I got out of, we actually worked together at a comic shop. And I got out of class and I stopped to pick him up to go to work. And he's like, "Hold on, we've got to watch this show." And I was like, "Why? We don't have time for this." And then we sat and we watched an episode, and I was like, "This is really awesome." I had, it had been on for probably a couple months. Yeah, I've kind of watched it here and there throughout the years. And then when Nate came to me and was like, "Would you like to draw gargoyles?" And I was like, "Yes." He's like, are you familiar with it? I was like, I'm gonna go watch them all right now on Disney on Disney Plus, and my wife and I actually started watching them again. So yeah, I mean, I don't have a ton of experience, but I kind of do, in the sense that I've experienced them.
Yeah. Greg, do you have an idea of something like the Dark Ages miniseries, which is a period piece set before the original origin of the story? Did you have an idea about that while you were making the animated show, or was was it something you were thinking about doing back then?
Yeah, in fact, we came up with a pitch for it, and pitched it to CBS Saturday morning. Uh, and they didn't buy it, which is too bad. But it, you know, that means we get to tell the story now. So it all turned out.
And I'd seen that you had said that the period it's set in Scotland in 971 AD is a historically significant period. Could you elaborate on that a little bit? I'm not that familiar with the Scottish history.
Really? You haven't studied it?
It's true. I actually studied Welsh history.
Oh, okay. Well, you got to make your choices, I guess. Yeah, I mean, Scottish history we discovered while making the show is almost endlessly fascinating. When we began the show with our pilot set in 994 AD, we had Vikings attack the castle because we thought Vikings are cool, and then doing a little research, we found out that that was actually accurate, that Vikings attacking the west coast of Scotland in that period was right. And then I sort of got inspired by the fact that we had stumbled into being accurate and said, let's try and be as accurate to the history as possible. Obviously, we're weaving gargoyles and other fantasy characters in there, but let's do our best to try and make the history real. And that became a huge boon for us in episodes like City of Stone and Avalon, because once we studied this history, we realized, oh my God, there are fantastic stories here that most people don't know. And we can weave our characters in and out of them, and that would be just a lot of fun. And so since then, we have maintained that through the comics, through everything. And 971 in particular is an era when you have an usurping King Cullen on the throne, and you have these two brothers, Kenneth and Malcolm. Kenneth is a real historical character. Malcolm is our fictional creation, whose father was king and whose older brother was king, and who want to take the throne back. And that was the year 971 in our continuity when gargoyles and humans form their alliance. And so this is a really rich period for us to explore the origins of the clan and in particular the origins of the gargoyle human alliance that lasted for 23 years.
Nice. And Drew, you've drawn a bunch of Red Sonja material. Do you think that sword and sorcery work gave you a good foundation for this Dark Age adventure for Gargoyles?
Oh, definitely. I really enjoy drawing that sort of material anyway. So uh, I've been, the more I draw these characters, especially Mentor or Hudson and Angel and Demona. I'm finding that Demona is somebody I love to draw. And Hudson, like it's like second nature for me now. And that usually doesn't happen in a first issue for me. It usually takes a couple issues and you kind of get allocated to the design aesthetic of the characters. But I don't know if it's just a slight familiarity I already have with them, but the organic nature of their costumes, the horns and the kind of toad stance like a horse. Like, and some of them have a more extreme stance than others, and you learn that like just little nuances they all have, the way they stand, the expressions. I'm really enjoying it right off the bat. Usually, like I said, it takes a couple issues, and you're like, you end up doing like 4 to 6 issue run, and by the fifth issue, you've got them down, and then you're already done. You're like, well, now I'm done with the book, so I don't get to draw them anymore. Uh, but luckily, with this, I have really, I mean, I'm kind of shocked how much I really enjoy drawing the characters.
Oh, that's great. And one bonus feature about the Dark Ages miniseries is that all 6 issues will be 40 pages instead of the usual 32 pages.
Please no. I love drawing it, but man,
No, like the bonus pages are each issue will include an original text story
okay.
From Greg.
Okay.
Yes,
that's right. I forgot. I was like, do I have to draw another 26 pages?
I'm sorry to frighten you like that.
I was like, I was unaware.
Greg, could you tell us a little more about the short pieces and the art that's going to accompany them?
Sure. So these backup stories are set even before 971, and I think I think they're really fascinating stories in their own right, but and they are, again, the same kind of thing. The history is true. We've weaved our characters in and through them, but they are more human centric. They are, so I think the stories are exciting, and the context, I think, is really helpful for our readership, that they'll understand more who Kenneth is, who Cullen is, who Malcolm is, etc., by reading these stories that are set even further back when these characters were still younger. But they are more human centric, and let's face it, our audience isn't buying the book to read about a bunch of humans. They're buying the book to read about gargoyles. And so we didn't think dedicating Drew's time, for example, to just drawing a bunch of humans without the gargoyles in there was a great use of resources. But we thought it would still be fun to make these stories canon to the series. And so we're putting them in as text features. There will be art back there. It's not so much illustrating these stories specifically, but as I said, we once tried to pitch this show to CBS back in the 90s, and we got some gorgeous art from the late, great Dave Schwartz, who passed away during the pandemic. He did some gorgeous art pieces to sell the show to CBS, and even though CBS didn't buy it, we still love that art. And so that art is like our main series set in 971, whereas these stories are set even earlier. So there'll be some art back there just to to make the book look good. But the stories themselves aren't really being illustrated. Again, it's these are human-centric stories, and the book's called Gargoyles. So we figured this was a great way to add value without adding too much expense.
Yep, and I think everyone's really going to enjoy those. I've seen the pitch art myself, and it's beautiful. All right, on that note, I think we've covered everything. It was great to speak to both of you and to hear more about this exciting new chapter in the Gargoyle story coming in July. Before we go, I just want to remind everyone to hit the like and subscribe buttons, and to make sure that you also pick up Greg's ongoing Gargoyle series, which is available now from Dynamite Entertainment.